silly is that?
Pulls off three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Wins the game at the buzzer!
What's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up? Hello, welcome back to the Hoop Junkie Podcast, the #1 sports podcast in the world.
According to us.
I'm your host, Zach. I'm joined as always by the MVP man himself, Chance Baker. How you doing, Chance?
Man, I'm doing great. I like the energy you're bringing for this pod. Someone's excited about all this great basketball we've got going on right now.
Dude, Chance, man, we just went through the rundown, and I'm sitting there like, doggone, we got a lot to talk about, man. I don't even know if we got that much time.
Oh, yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like, there's literally 8 teams left, and I feel like there's still just so much to talk about. NBA is just nonstop, 365 days a year. There's always some stuff going on, and so it's exciting times.
Well, that's the great part with doing an NBA pod. It's always content all the time, even in the off season, even in the playoffs when you only got a handful of teams left. It's just a lot of stuff to talk about. Hey, did you see any of that Met Gala stuff? Did you see Shea and Russ at the Met Gala?
No, I have not followed the Met Gala. What did I miss?
Look it up, man. Shea was looking fresh as all get out, man.
That's no surprise.
Yeah, and then there was a roach that hit the carpet. That was really weird. I mean, you got all these people wearing these $100,000 clothes and all this type of stuff, and then a roach comes crawling up the carpet. It was a little weird, but you know, yeah, the Met Gala is it's kind of fun for me every year because I don't watch the Met Gala at all, but it's always interesting to see how many people keep up with the Met Gala and talk about all these outfits and all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay, what is this weird, big, aristocratic event that goes on every single year?
Exactly. We might have to do a full bonus pod dedicated to the Met Gala and just go do a deep dive. I think people would love to hear that, right?
Yeah, we'll sit there and just pound a few beers and start talking about people's outfits. Just a whole bunch of just 2 sports dudes talking about some fashion.
Yeah, just give our analysis. I'm surprised Kyle Kuzma wasn't at that one. I feel like he would have been one to make an appearance.
Oh, he may have been out of outfits for the Met Gala because he probably wears them all throughout the year.
Yeah, he used his up too much.
Yeah,
he hit his quota.
I think they're what is it? Spencer Dinwiddie said about him. Or maybe someone else said it during that whole beef.
It was Dinwiddie.
It wasn't Dinwiddie, but whatever.
It was. Yeah.
Oh, it was. Yeah. Well, Kuzma cared more about his outfits.
Yeah. Yeah, because Kuzma was getting him for the crypto stuff, and he was going at Kuz for the outfits. Like I said, just always something with the NBA. It's so entertaining.
It is. But Chance, we got a lot of news today. We've
got news coming in right as we started recording. It's just piling in.
We got a whole bunch of news, but we got to start from the top. Joel Embiid has been announced as this year's NBA Most Valuable Player. Chances feel like this has been something that's been long overdue for Embiid. He's been saying that he's been wanting it every single year, but this was the year where he finally put it together. Are you surprised, Chance, that Joel won the MVP?
Not surprised at all. This was my pick at the end of the season. I was Team Jokic for most of the year. I thought the last 20-25% of the season, Jokic kind of coasted a little bit more, and Embiid really put his foot on the gas at that point. And I mean, he was unbelievable, leading the league in scoring, over 30 points a game. Just dominant, complete dominance on both ends of the court. And yeah, I thought it was the right call. I expected Embiid to get it. I think part of it is Jokic, winning back to back. Giannis has got, a couple before. It was really between those 3. And I mentioned this, in our predictions pod about who the MVP should be. Like when it's that close to me, when Giannis already has a couple, Jokic has a couple, and Embiid has none. I think when it's that close, you go with the guy that hasn't won one yet. And I think it's fully deserved. I think he was absolutely dominant. And I think he really wanted it, and he can finally add that to his amazing resume that he's got. So now he's just got to go get a championship to complete it.
Man, we talked about this on the pod where we gave our picks. I ended up rolling with Giannis, and Giannis is at home now, so
we avoided that weird situation where Dirk got the MVP, but then they were eliminated in the first round. So he's getting the award when they're already technically out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't see Giannis getting the award from a podium, man, because that whole Dirk stuff hurt my soul. And it would have been really ironic. Like one of Giannis's idols is Dirk, so that would have been
Yeah.
like you back in the same position. But I mean, you can't go wrong with Embiid, man. He has carried that team through much of the season on his back, and it really sucks for him to be in the predicament that he's in now. Was sitting out games due to this injury, and they're saying that this injury is pretty serious, right? But
Yeah, it seems like the longer time has gone on, the more reports leak out that, yeah, this isn't just like a minor sprain. So
mhm.
that's definitely unfortunate to have an MVP season derailed once again by injury, but you never know. Hopefully he can come back. Sounds like Philly might be able to extend the series a little bit without him. So we'll get on that later. But yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing season from him. And hopefully we can see him back on the court.
Well, look, if James Harden keeps doing what he's doing, I think they might be okay.
Yeah, apparently we got MVP Harden back again as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, man. But anyways, Chance, I know the MVP is probably some of the biggest news of the day, but our listeners have probably been sitting there waiting for their favorite part of these postseason pods, Chance. They're waiting for those good old NBA eulogies, brother.
We've got a lot of them. It was just complete mass destruction over the past week since we last spoke. Just teams dropping out left and right, being eliminated from the playoffs. So we've got a long list today. And we're going to start with the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks began their season on October 19th, 2022. They were eliminated from the playoffs on April 27th, 2023. The Hawks made a big splash last summer by acquiring DeJounte Murray to be a secondary star alongside Trae Young. Ultimately, this season had a lot of ups and downs for the Hawks. They fired coach Nate McMillan in February and replaced him with Quinn Snyder. The Hawks ended up getting hot down the stretch after this change, and they snuck into the playoffs as the 7th seed. And although they were seen as no match for Boston, they ended up pushing them to 6 games and didn't go down without a fight. However, there are increased rumblings that Trae Young could be on his way out, and it seems like the team doesn't quite gel with him as the leader the way they should be. So, how do you feel about the offseason shaping up for the Hawks, Zach?
Man, this is one team where it's just kind of hard to put my thumb on. Obviously they bring in Quinn Snyder. I said it when they first hired him. If I'm Quinn, I'm taking over that team. I'm like, hey, you guys got to give me some type of guarantees that I've got some control over this roster. Which there's been reports that has been the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. It's just a matter of wait and see what they do with that team. It looks like they've been trying to move off of John Collins. Does he stay?
They've been
Does
trying
he
to move
go?
off of him for 3 years, so we'll see.
Yeah, and he hasn't been the same since his injury. So I imagine that's going to be even harder to do. What do you do with your two bigs with Capella and Okongwu? You got to pay Okongwu coming up. Are you going to get rid of Capella and make room for him? I don't know. The Hawks got a lot of moves to be had, but I think for them it's just wait and see. It's kind of hard to predict what's going to happen.
On to the next. The Cleveland Cavaliers began their season October 19th, 2022, and they were eliminated from the playoffs on April 26th, 2023. The Cavs had a tremendous regular season led by newly acquired Donovan Mitchell. They were one of the best defensive teams in the league, but they were just completely outmatched in the playoffs. It was evident they just weren't ready for the moment. Evan Mobley looked shell-shocked going up against Mitchell Robinson, and Jared Allen even admitted that the lights were too bright for them in the playoffs. The Cavs will continue to build around a solid young core of players, but it was clear they do have some work to do before being considered a serious threat in the East. So, Zach, where do the Cavs go from here?
Yeah, the Cavs, man. This offseason, they got to put Evan Mobley. He needs to split his time between a steakhouse and a gym because he's got to get used to playoff basketball. They've got a lot tied up between their core, between Garland, Mitchell, and then Mobley, and then even Allen. So going into the offseason, really what they need to do is just hold pat with this core for another year and just hope that age and maturity really gets them more prepared going into this next season.
Yep, agreed. Going over to the West, the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings began their season on October 19th, 2022, and they were eliminated from the playoffs on April 30th, 2023. The Kings were one of the most fun stories of the league this year. After being projected to be a borderline play-in team, they finished as a 3 seed in the West and broke a 16-year playoff drought. They were led by a breakout season from De'Aaron Fox, along with Sabonis, who is one of the best centers in the entire league. They played fast, they scored a lot of points, and they were ready to light the beam every time they won a home game. But the Kings were matched up with the reigning champs, the Golden State Warriors, in the first round. They went punch for punch with them in what was probably the most exciting first-round series, but they ultimately fell short in an intense Game 7. So after the season ended with a first-round exit, they do have a lot to be proud of, and they'll now look to build on this momentum to come back even stronger next year. How do you feel about the Kings, Zach?
Hey, Sacktown, you guys have nothing to feel bad about, okay? You guys went ahead. You guys went against the defending champs, okay? You have nothing to feel bad about. Run it back next year. Make those tweaks. What you got to do, man. If I were them, I would look at investing into a legit big, because I think a lot of that really showed coming down to the wire when you in these playoff situations, the court shrinks down a lot. And so when you start talking about those boards and things like that, they matter. And Sabonis just kind of proved that he was just not that guy. But Sabonis had a great year. Needless to say, Fox had a great year. They had a great year with a lot of their rotation players. Man, I'm bringing everybody back, making some moves around the edges and seeing what we can do to build on this.
Oh, yeah. Nothing but positives out of the Kings this year. Clearly they showed some weaknesses down the stretch. The offensive rebounds, Kevon Looney was just dominating them down low. And as you mentioned, they could use another big, kind of like that Clint Capella type that could just help them down low on the boards. But yeah, ultimately, amazing season for the Kings. I think pretty much everybody there is okay with how the season played out for them. One fan base that is not okay with how things played out, the Milwaukee Bucks, who began their season on October 19th, 2022, and were eliminated from the playoffs on April 26, 2023. I never thought I'd be giving a eulogy to the Bucks this soon, but here we are. The Bucks were the best team in the NBA during the regular season, and they were odds-on favorites to win the title going into the playoffs. However, they completely melted down and were upset by the 8-seeded Miami Heat, 4-1. The Bucks are just the 5th 1 seed to lose in the first round, and this ended up being one of the biggest round 1 upsets in NBA history. And although Giannis did miss part of the series, the Bucks had no answer for Jimmy Butler, even in games Giannis played. This series was just a complete shock to the entire league, and now we must wonder, where do the Bucks go from here? Chris Middleton is a free agent, and his age and injuries are starting to creep up. The Bucks clearly need another creator on offense, so they'll need to be aggressive this summer to rebound from this epic collapse. So Zach, how do the Bucks bounce back from this?
Bro, I don't know. It's been almost a week, and I still don't know. Like, dude, this is a dire situation. Drew Holiday goes on the Point Forward podcast with Andre Iguodala and Evan Turner and says that after his contract, he's retiring. Chris Middleton, his injury situation, he's wanting the bag. Do you lock up long term in him? Giannis's extension is right around the corner, and then Mike Budenholzer has been questionable even when he won the championship. If you recall, if they didn't win the championship that year,
he was on the hot seat leading up to it.
He was getting fired. Now you got a new owner in there. What does he decide to do? Now, I get it. Reports came out that Bud had a death in the family the week of the finals. The week of that first round. And I'm pretty sure he had a lot going on. I imagine that coaching was tough for him. So that new owner's got a tough decision to make on him, but it's a decision that has to be made. I get it. Personal stuff happens and stuff, but at the same time, this is a business. And then I don't necessarily know, I'm sure when we get deeper in the off season, we can look at the landscape and see what coaches are out there, but I don't know. I don't even know if you have a better option than Bud. Bud is not a terrible coach, but at the end of the day, he has proven time and time again that he doesn't make the best adjustments when needed. So that's that. I have no clue what the Bucks are going to do, but I am more than glad to podcast about it.
Going to finish up with the hometown team. The Memphis Grizzlies began their season October 19th, 2022, and they were eliminated from the playoffs on April 28th, 2023. Where to begin? Last season, the Grizzlies were the upcoming fun team everyone loved to root for. 1 year later, they're the villain that everyone loves to hate. And who can blame them? The Grizzlies talked more trash than anyone throughout the year. Ja Morant claimed he was fine in the West before becoming a national story for reckless behavior. Dillon Brooks consistently trash-talked publicly, but he poked the wrong bear by calling LeBron James old and claiming he wouldn't respect him until he gave him 40. Well, LeBron gave the Grizzlies 40, a 40-point beatdown to end their season in humiliating fashion. The Grizzlies will now have to reevaluate the identity they choose to portray next year, and it appears change is happening. Shams reported today that the Grizzlies have informed Dillon Brooks that he will not be brought back under any circumstances. The Grizzlies are officially done with his antics, and there is now a parade inside my city celebrating the end of the Dillon Brooks era in Memphis. The Grizzlies will now look to regroup this offseason and come back stronger next year with a different mindset. The team is extremely young. With Ja, Jaren, and Bane committed long-term, the future is still bright in Memphis. Zach, thoughts on the Memphis Grizzlies as we conclude the eulogies tonight?
Well, first and foremost, my brother, are you okay? Are you okay?
Man, today is a great day to be a Grizzlies fan. It's the end of an era, end of Dillon Brooks' time. I loved him during his time here. I defended him at times when others didn't, but at the end of the day, his mindset was just on a completely different planet. There's even reports now that he wanted a bigger role in the offense, and he wished they would have ran more plays. He did say that in the post media that he wished they would have ran more plays for him. So it was an unfortunate way. Obviously, I'm not going to say I'm happy that the Grizzlies went out with a 40-point blowout, but I think this is something that needed to happen. I think the Grizzlies, there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, right? Last season, the Grizzlies were confident. They were that young upcoming team. They weren't backing down from anybody, and that was great. This season, that kind of led into more arrogance, and ultimately they needed to be humbled a little bit. And I watched a lot of their exit interviews, and the theme of the whole thing was, changing their identity, not being that team that is trash talking all the time. Obviously, they'll still have their swagger, and I hope that continues, but you've got to know that, like, when you've only won one playoff series, you have to tone it down a little bit. I think getting rid of Dillon Brooks will change that. I think Ja's had a different mindset since his situation that he was dealing with. So I think they'll learn from this. It's all up from here. The Dillon Brooks story, it's crazy how it was released. I've never seen a story come out where they say they're not bringing this player back under any circumstances. I think they might have twisted the words a little bit there to make it a better story, but ultimately it's going to be an exciting offseason. We'll see what they do. I think they've committed to youth really hard, and ultimately that didn't pay off. So now do they go out and get a vet and try to turn the wheel a little bit? We'll see.
Well, Chance, so like with the whole DB situation, I mean, I think that whole Shams tweet was just really weird because it's like, how does that get out there like that? Like, under any circumstances? Like, is it another team that's leaking this information to lower Dillon's value, or the Grizz just so fed up with him, they're like, oh, well, we're gonna make it hell for you to go find another team.
Honestly, from what I've seen, it seems like it might have been Dillon Brooks's camp. And I don't think that under any circumstances, I think that was more Shams, like, adding those words. Chris Harrington, local reporter here, kind of added, like, this wasn't the Grizzlies' words, like, under any circumstances. What most likely happened, in my opinion, is they probably did talk to him in his exit interview and said, hey, I think it's best for both parties if, we don't even have any more discussions. Like, you go your separate ways. And that's probably best for both parties. And I'm sure the way that Shams was given that information, he kind of twisted that and said, like, under no circumstances. I think that's kind of like the theme of the quote, but I don't necessarily think the Grizzlies put it that way. But yeah, it's interesting. I think they were clearly fed up. You could hear Zach Kleiman in his exit interview saying, he didn't even want to talk about Dillon Brooks because he was just over it. and you could tell that they're kind of ready to move on. I think the poking the bear, as you say, to LeBron, I think that was the last straw when he just didn't back it up at all and had his basically one of his worst shooting series of his career, and he's had a lot of bad ones. So I think it's best for both sides to move on. Curious to see where he ends up, but it'll be a different mindset for the Grizzlies in the future, it sounds like.
Yeah, man, I get it. I mean, if I'm climbing in the Grizz, I mean, you got to do something different, right? And and obviously, you're not breaking up their core with Bang, Jaren, and Ja. So making moves around the edges is what you need to do right now. Still a great team, but what killed the Grizzlies this season was immaturity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every last situation the Grizz have been in was immaturity. From
Yep.
Josh Shotgun Willie's escapade to the whole "I'm fine in the West" comment to Dylan Brooks poking the bear, to Desmond Bain talking about Rui Hachimura, to
Yep.
and then guaranteeing that it's coming back game 7. Like, all of this stuff was immaturity, and I think Chance, old heads always tell you, you don't really understand this till you get older. Like, you ever talk about like if you knew what you knew now when you were in high school, think about how much better of a player you would have been, right?
Right.
I think
Right.
I think it's the same thing with the Grizz, man. I think this humbling of this season is going to be what's going to propel them forward. And I'm excited to see what they're going to come out of this, because um, in these situations, like whenever like I was talking about those old heads, like old heads tell you, respect the game.
Mm-hmm.
The Grizz have zero choice but to respect the game now.
Yep.
I'm sure, like we heard about team protocols about, hey, when we're flying out of town on travel, we're coming right back. Like the Grizz were like, hey, from Jenkins all the way up to Kleiman in the front office organization, I think they realized, like, hey, we got to do something different. We went from
Mm-hmm.
being celebrities, rock stars. Nobody talked bad about us at all last year. Everybody was just riding the wave with us. We had ESPN. They loved us so much that ESPN came in town
Yep.
and did a whole thing. So, like, this is whole new territory for them this year of being a villain, and people talking about them negatively. So I think that they understand that this is also the NBA as well. The NBA that you were in last year was an NBA for a successful team.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is the NBA for a team that is a mess.
Yep.
So
Pretty
um,
much.
I think they've seen it now. And so I couldn't imagine that they would want to go back to this. so,
Yeah.
because it has been complete, utter hell for them since they got eliminated, and especially losing 40 points in an elimination, losing by 40 points in elimination game is not how you want to go out.
Yeah.
Because that carries with you all summer long, and you feel it. You
Mm-hmm.
can ask the Phoenix Suns.
Yep.
So like it's a thing. But anyways, Chance, there was also some other crazy stuff that happened. We got a game 7.
We did.
We got a we
We
got
got
a
one.
game 7, Chance. And you know what? Stephen Wardell Curry showed his ass in that damn game, boy.
Man, that was iconic. That
Man,
was.
like I was sitting there watching the game, and I was watching the game with a buddy, and then it was probably like the end of the third. I said, man, because you felt the tide starting to turn in that third quarter, and I was like, Curry's gonna have 50 tonight, and I think he had maybe like 38 or something around there. I said Curry is gonna have 50. I'm telling you. And sure enough, he did. He went and got his 50, man. And I think he has re-sparked all those conversations about, is Stephen Curry a top 10 player of all time? Is
Yeah.
he one of the greatest point guards of all time? I think we needed that type of game out of him. For me personally, I know a lot of Dubs fans will probably hate on me and say, "Well, no, he's been this dude. He's been this dude." Which, hey, he's a 2-time MVP. Stephen Curry has been a great player up until this point. But one thing that he has been lacking has been strong, dominant playoff performances. Just because, let's be real, he hasn't had to for a good chunk of his career.
Hmm.
With how loaded that team has been. But then even in some playoff series and even in some of those finals, he kind of shriveled up a little bit for a lot of the earlier parts of his career. But Steph is now at a total different spot in his career now, where it's almost like he has gotten better with time. He has aged like a fine wine. Like
Yep.
he knows how to pick his spots. And it's like whenever he's feeling it, like there's literally no one on this planet who can stop Steph Curry.
Oh yeah. And it's crazy, you hear Wiggins and Draymond Green after the game saying that like apparently he gave this like really inspirational speech before the game, basically saying like, hey, if you guys are in, if you're with me, like I'm not going to let us lose this game. And like how amazing is that to know that you've got a guy that says that, and basically the complete opposite of what we talked about with Dylan Brooks, right? Where Dylan Brooks says all this stuff and then goes out and goes 3-15. How amazing is it that you have this guy that's like, look, if you guys just trust me, I am not going to let us lose this game today. And then he just goes out and drops 50, an efficient 50 at that. And it was unbelievable. Most points ever in a game 7, I believe. And so, yeah, I mean, we both thought that the Warriors had a good chance if it went to 7, even being in Sacramento, because they've been through these tough games. They have that experience. And you saw that in a lot of different ways with Steph, with Looney just grabbing every single rebound under the sun. And the Kings just had no answer in that way. The defensive intensity that the Warriors put on in the second half, a lot of different factors, but ultimately Steph Curry stole the show and completely put the team on his back and willed them to a victory. And yeah, like you said, like even to this age, to this day, he's still playing this well. His game has aged so tremendously. And I think we can add this to the list of off-season pod discussions as far as like who is the top 10, who are the top 15 players of all time. I'd have to really dive in a little bit more, but my initial gut reaction would be that he is somewhere around like the bottom of that top 10. And that'd be definitely a conversation to have for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of where I think I've got him. I think like he just opened the door on top 10. I think he opened the door, but I'm not even sure if he's all the way in the room yet. We got to figure that out, right? We got to figure that out.
Right.
But definitely we can talk about that this offseason. But Chance, Steph Curry doing what he did, you know what it's set up? It's set up another LeBron versus Steph Curry matchup. Can you believe it? Here we are. How many
Oh
times
yeah.
have they played against each other in the postseason?
Yep. What was it, like 4 or 5
6,
finals
7?
in a row?
I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We're up there now at this point. But going into this matchup, Chance, I have had the hardest time picking a winner out of this matchup because we've got two different situations here. The Lakers have been one of the best teams in the Western Conference since the trade deadline. The Warriors have been up and down all year, but it looks like they're putting it together the same exact way they put it together last year when they won a championship.
Yep.
And so it obviously shows that they have a switch that they can just turn it on. So, Chance, going into this matchup, I don't know who to pick, man. I don't know
It's tough.
who to pick. But who do you have going into this matchup, James?
It's definitely been a struggle to decide on this one for sure. Ultimately, I've got two scenarios. I've got the team that I want to win and the team I'm going to put my prediction on. The team
Yep,
that I'm going to
I feel like
predict,
I'm that way too.
I think I might be the opposite of where you're feeling though. I'm predicting the Lakers to win this series. I'm going to go Lakers.
Whoa, okay.
I'm going to go Lakers in 6. I think I'm going to root for the Warriors because I think LeBron has already cemented himself as, I think, worst case top 2 of all time. You might say top 3. I don't think there's anybody that would argue against that. Whereas Steph, like you said, there's still some room to grow. I'd like to see Steph cement his legacy a little more. There's a lot of guys on the Warriors team that get on my nerves as a Grizzlies fan, but ultimately it's hard to root against Steph. I think I'll be rooting for the Warriors, also just out of bitterness after seeing what LeBron did to my team. But as far as like unbiased aside who I'm predicting, I do think the Lakers have a great chance to win this series. I think the Warriors are a lot more beatable this season than they have been in previous years. And I think the Lakers, the size that they have, the key is Anthony Davis, right? If they can get 4 or 5 good Anthony Davis games, the series is over. So that's the biggest question mark. And I think the way I saw Anthony Davis play in that first series, if he can lock in defensively, even if he has a couple bad offensive games, the way he's playing on defense right now is just completely terrorizing anybody that comes near the rim. And I think for the Warriors side, they don't really have anybody that I think is a good matchup down low. And I think the Lakers, I mean, the sample size is out there. They've played over 20 games since the deadline and since they made their moves, and their record is absolutely unbelievable. I think they're 18-8 going into the playoffs, and 4-2 in the playoffs against the Grizzlies. So they have just been a completely different team since the deadline. I think they're a lot more well-rounded. D'Angelo Russell finally shot over 50% in a playoff game, so he's got his confidence going a little bit. They've got other guys to where you don't need LeBron to play 40 minutes of just all-out superstar ball anymore. He can kind of coast. They've got other guys that can make plays with D'Angelo, with Austin Reeves. I think they've got enough that I'm going Lakers in 6, but this one could go either way. It's definitely the series I'm most excited about, and I'm sure most NBA fans are, but that's ultimately where I see it going.
So you got the Lakers in 6, right?
Yep, I'm going Lakers in 6.
I'm picking Warriors in 7. That's where I landed on. But man, I'm a LeBron guy, man. I'm rooting for the King to because I'm opposite of you, Chance. I really feel like Steph Curry has obviously gotten the better of LeBron in these matchups, as far as from a team standpoint. I mean, now from a player-to-player standpoint, LeBron has went out guns a-blazing in many of those losses to those Warriors teams. However, from a team perspective, Steph Curry has just gotten his number, and I feel like something about that is going to ring true again. I'm thinking it's going to be close. That's why I'm picking a 7-game series now. But I do see the Warriors winning. Then you think about too, the Warriors are going to have home court advantage as well throughout this series. And
it's a big deal for them.
How much does that play into it? Especially a team that has struggled on the road. They got more home games, and if it comes down to a game 7 in San Francisco, man, I'm having to go with the Warriors. But you know what? I hope that I'm wrong, just for the sake of seeing LeBron go as far as he can. Just because at this point I don't have a dog in the race, so I'm rooting for LeBron.
Right. And I'm with you. I think if it does go to 7, I think Golden State would have a really good chance to close them out in 7. That's part of why I went with LeBron and the Lakers in 6, because I think they, still won one of those first 2 in Golden State and do the traditional, fight off your home court, win it in 6. I do think if it goes to 7, it would be really hard to beat Golden State in that atmosphere. But yeah, man, I cannot wait for this series. Game 1 coming up later tonight. I think this Game 1 tonight will really set the tone for the series. We'll see, how locked in is Anthony Davis going to be? What adjustments will Golden State make? It's going to be really interesting. I can't wait for the series. And I mean, it's an NBA fan's dream. Steph versus LeBron. We've got it again. So I know Adam Silver is just ecstatic right now.
Now, Chance, this next series was a series that I think you called it pretty right from based off of what I've seen. I know it's only been 2 games, but I think I missed the boat here, and I did not consider how much depth actually really matters in these playoffs. The Phoenix Suns versus the Denver Nuggets. The Suns just don't even look. I mean, so like in this game 1 was what it was, right? Murray went bananas, and it just was what it was. But game 2, the Suns put up a fight. And honestly, it was up and down all game. And then even the Suns had took a decent sized lead at one point in the third quarter. But then they gave all that back. And then the Nuggets just ended up just putting it together. Like the Nuggets they all just put their work boots on and went straight to work. I don't know if the Suns have enough to beat the Denver Nuggets. Chance.
Yeah, and we just got this report, as you mentioned, news just filling in. So we just got a report right when we started that Chris Paul is going to be reevaluated in a week with his groin injury. So to me, that essentially means I think he's out for the series. I think reevaluated in a week, that puts him at coming back for, I think, game 6 at the earliest. And so I think, not that Chris Paul is the Chris Paul of old, but they need that lead guard out there. Cameron Payne hasn't been great filling in for him, and he's battled his own injuries throughout the season as well. I think the Suns are in serious trouble here. I mentioned the reason I like the Nuggets is because I just didn't like the matchup for the Suns with DeAndre Ayton and supporting cast trying to cover Jokic, and Jokic has just been unbelievable in these playoffs. And I think for the Nuggets, for Jamal Murray to have such a bad game and they still come out with a win just tells you all you need to know about how good Jokic is and how good their supporting cast is. You've got KCP hitting huge timely threes and playing lockdown defense as well. And it seems like, Booker and KD can get their 30 apiece, and that's great. But who else is going to contribute? Ayton just getting punished on the boards and completely outmatched as we kind of expected would happen on his end. And yeah, I think the Suns are in trouble here. They've basically got to win these next 2 in Phoenix, and you're playing without your lead point guard. So if I'm Denver, you get one of these next 2, you're up 3-1 going back to your home court. I think you feel great about that. So yeah, I'd feel really good if I was Denver. I feel really good about picking them out of the West, regardless of who they would face in the next round as well. But you never know. I mean, we've seen these series flip, so you never know.
Dude, if I'm Phoenix this offseason, I'm 100% moving DeAndre Ayton. He's gone.
Yeah.
Because you think about him on that roster taking up a large piece of the cap, like with already having Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Chris Paul, you're very limited on what roster moves you can make, anyways, with that current construction of that team.
Yeah, his new deal is like $30 million a year, right? Like, it's insane,
right? And if I've got somebody, if I got a big man, if I'm paying a true center $30 million a year, I need you to show up on Jokic and Embiid nights. Them the 2 nights I need you to show up. If I'm paying you $30 million, because they could move him and trade him for 3 players making three rotation players making $10 million apiece, and give you everything and probably even more than what he is actually giving you. So like if there's some kind of way I can trade him for 3 other veteran rotation players or 2 big time rotation players, I'm doing it. Just from a roster construction standpoint, because like I'm sure you've seen the clips, Chance, where Jokic is going up for the rebound and Ayton's just sitting there just like,
oh yeah, he's like, just what's hanging out, enjoying the show.
It's almost like his head just. It's like sometimes like you can see him on the court where he just has lapses in judgment at periods of the time, and so I definitely, man, it wouldn't even be a question for me this offseason on if Ayton's gonna stay there, because like I'm not saying necessarily move him for another star. I'm gonna move him for rotation players. Like I'm calling maybe I'm calling Brooklyn and I'm like, hey, look, you guys are in a little bit of a pinch. Maybe I can help you guys free up some cap and then give you some picks. And then you send Nick Claxton somewhere else, take DeAndre Ayton, and give me 3 wings. Something.
It's interesting because they just sent all their wings to Brooklyn. So then you'd be basically like doing that back. So I was kind of surprised they didn't have Ayton in that original deal for Kevin Durant in the first place. I'm with you. I think Ayton has potential. I think there's obviously been a disconnect with him and Monty for a while now, and that could be part of it, as he's not as mentally locked in as he should be. So this could be a case where he goes to another team and he becomes a 20-10 star that he has the potential to be. But I think I'm with you. I think his time at Phoenix has run its course, and it is time for them to make a move. He does have this fat contract, so that makes it a little more complicated. But yeah, if I'm them, I'm looking to move on. And Chris Paul getting up there in age too. At what point are they, replacing him and moving on with another lead guard? Because it's the same old story every year with him. That is part of why it was hard for me to pick Phoenix to go far, just because between him and KD, one of them is not going to be able to survive the playoffs from a health standpoint. And we've got it again. And,
Right.
Chris Paul is very respected in the league, but it's a story that happens every single year, it seems like. And this year is no different. So they've got some decisions to make because they're going all in. It's time to win a championship within the next 2 years when you've got a guy like Durant. So it'll be interesting to see where they go from here, assuming Denver takes care of business, which I feel pretty confident about that they will the rest of the series.
Yeah, man. Well, so and then the Heat Knicks series. So Jimmy Butler is out for this game tonight, game 2 against the Knicks. The Heat went in there and they put a game together, man, and won and stole game 1 at MSG. Chance, who are you thinking is going to come out on top by the end of this series?
It's still hard to pick against the Knicks. I think they're the more talented team and, just a better team overall. I think missing Julius Randle was kind of an undersold story of that game 1 as well. He's back for game 2. But the Heat, man, they just do not go away. And with Jimmy Butler, I mean, he was basically playing on one leg the last 5 minutes, just over there taking practice shots from the corner, just pretending to shoot. And they still, for whatever reason, were not attacking him on defense. And so this is a tough one. I think ultimately I'm going to stick with Miami. I'll go Miami in 6. I think the Knicks are the more talented team, but they did their thing. They got the split already. And so you go back to Miami. I'm hoping Jimmy Butler is, a little healthier coming off a couple more days of rest. I just think there's something about this Miami team where they just find ways to win. They've got the experience, whereas the Knicks, a lot of their players don't necessarily have the playoff experience. And I think that's really proving to be very valuable. You saw that in the Warriors Kings series out west, and you've seen that with the Heat. They've just got all these guys that have been through these playoff series, year in and year out. And it's a tough one to call, but I think Miami, since they took care of business already, getting that away win, I think they can end up winning the series in 6. So I'll stick with that. But obviously, if Jimmy Butler, if this injury lingers, that changes everything. So first and foremost, just hoping he stays healthy or can recover.
I'm actually thinking. I think the Knicks are going to win this series. I don't know what game, 6, 7, whatever. I think that these injuries are going to come back and stack up on the Heat a little bit. I mean, because we're forgetting that they're losing one of their biggest scorers on the team, and Tyler Hero. I know, there's a lot of people talking about how like maybe him being out is probably helping the team in some ways because they're able to put better defenders on the court. And things of that nature, but
I don't necessarily buy that. When you got a 20-point a game guy, like you need him on the court, right?
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, that's so. I'm not trying to hear that. I think, and then you start talking about like what that does to the rotation. That moves everybody up in the rotation, and also puts more minutes on guys who are playing. So I'm a little worried about burnout from the Heat, just because like. Like this Knicks team, man, they're an active team, man. And it's not like you're playing a team that's slow in pace. This team is pushing the ball. Josh Hart is moving all around the floor. Jalen Brunson is constantly bruising people in the paint. And then you add Julius Randle, it's going to be the same thing again. So, man, I'm going with the Knicks to put this series together. I think game 1 was a little bit of a blemish, but I think overall that the Knicks are going to be okay.
So this game is going on at time of recording. There's 2 minutes left in the first. Knicks are up 2, and RJ Barrett has 16 points in the first quarter already. So
wow, hey RJ Barrett, welcome to the playoffs, man.
Yeah. So if he's going to play like that, then I think you're going to be right on it. But yeah, there's going to be an interesting series to follow for sure. I think regardless of who wins this one, I think they'll get bounced in the next round. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's hard to count out Jimmy Butler at this point with what he's done in his history of playoff performances. It's just been unreal,
man. Chance. So in the northeast corner of the world, and Philly and Boston, the MVP is out, man, and it's looking like it might be a thing that we're gonna have to keep our eyes on. But thank God James Harden must have went to a Houston strip club and rejuvenated himself, because he was back, man. He was back in full effect and carried that team to a game one victory. So allowing for Embiid to get a little bit more time to get his life together before he has to suit up. Chance, overall in this series, who do you have taking this series?
So going into the playoffs, I had this matchup and I actually had Philly winning in 7. Obviously, this is pre-Embiid injury. I actually had Philly winning the whole thing. So for my bracket
Mm-hmm.
challenge, I really hope Embiid's able to come back. For this series, I think I'm going to stick with my pick just because they went in, same situation as Miami. They went in, they got one on the road. I think if I'm Philly, unless Embiid's just 100% ready to go back, I go ahead and rest him again in game 2. And you're essentially punting that game. I really don't see any way Philly wins game 2. If they win game 2, then this series is basically over. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Boston will come back in game 2 and even it up. But at that point, you've gotten some more rest for Embiid. Go back to your home court. You hope that he's able to play, even if he's only 75%. If Harden's playing at this level, all you need is 75% Embiid. And I don't think Harden can keep doing this every single night. I think at this age that would wear down on him. But if he needs to go in for, a week and just take on the scoring load, he's clearly shown that, in the first round, it looked like he was done. He was not finishing around the rim, and it looked like that was going to be a serious problem. And then all of a sudden he turns back the clock and he's hitting his step back threes again. That 3 that he hit in the last minute was just complete vintage James Harden. That really made me, I literally feel like I screamed out loud when he hit that, because I was like, there he is again. Like, that's the James Harden I remember. And, yeah, if he's playing like that and you've just got Embiid healthy enough to get up and down the court and do what he does, the longer the series goes on, the more he's able to keep recovering. And for Boston, I just haven't been impressed with them. You look at Atlanta getting 2 games against them, and I don't even think Atlanta was that great of a team, and they were still able to, extend that series. I think this is just a different Boston team than what we saw last year. So I'm just not incredibly impressed with them. I think to go out and lose that game on your home court against a depleted team like this, that's just not a good look, not a good sign. They clearly weren't focused going in. So I think Boston will win game 2, probably in a pretty easy fashion. But I think ultimately Philly has what it takes to win this series and shock some people, as long as Embiid is able to at least play at somewhat of a decent level. So that's what I've got.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think I actually picked Boston to win that series, but I don't even remember. I don't have my picks in front of me. But but the whatever, as long as Embiid can be somewhat Embiidish, I really feel
hmm
good about Philly's chances, man. Boston has just not looked that good this playoffs, man. Like
They really haven't.
one minute, one minute it seems like they're putting it together, and the next minute it's just like what the hell are they doing?
It's like
So I
lapses in
think
focus. They're going to Marcus
yeah,
Smart to end the game, and I couldn't tell if that was a drawn up play or what. But he's turning the ball over at the end, and the role players for Philly played way better. You've got Melton out there draining 5 threes in a row. Like, if their role players are playing at that
hmm
level, then it's a wrap.
and I think and man, and shout out to Joe Mazzulla. He's done a great job all season. But man, this is kind of one of those situations where the type of coach that Ime Udoka is and
hmm
how strict and stringent he is on these types of things, like with just attention and focus to detail coming out of that whole Popovich coaching tree. And uh like I'm wondering if and I'm sure we'll hear about this after the season's over for them, but I'm wondering if he is just kind of new to this moment himself, as a
hmm
first time head coach. Because coaching in the league is a different ball game. You're
Oh
coaching
yeah,
it, and then in this case, especially, you're coaching against a very seasoned veteran coach in Doc Rivers. Like
yep.
I know we rip Doc Rivers all the time for a lot of stuff that he does, but to be honest, I mean, there ain't too many coaches better than Doc Rivers still. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
and he's been through
So
a lot of these situations before. This isn't his first.
mhm. Yeah, and I'm sure he's motivated to beat his old team. So
hmm
like I'm sure this team is motivated as well, because they know how big it is for him. So all of that stuff matters. But man, if Embiid can come back and just be remotely the same, now what he needs to do is he needs to stop all the flopping and falling on the ground and all that other stuff he does, because with
That takes a
with the
toll.
with that takes a toll. Dealing with his knee injury, he don't need to stop wasting all that energy playing around with
Yeah.
that stuff. But if he comes back healthy, man, I think I'm picking the Sixers as well to close the series out. So, well, Chance. I think we did that, brother.
Yep, I think we did it. I think we hit them all.
I think we hit them all. Well, you got anything else for anybody else out there? Anything else that you're looking for?
No, I just think a lot of exciting series ready to get on here and see how the Knicks Heat ends up going. Pretty confident. It looks like the Knicks are probably going to take this, and if RJ Barrett's going to score 50 points tonight, then don't see what answer the Heat will have. But yeah, it's a lot of exciting basketball. Really interested to see how this game one goes for the Warriors and Lakers here later tonight. I think, like I said, I think game one is going to set the tone. So really curious to see how both teams look. Don't be surprised. LeBron and AD coming off a few days rest, whereas Steph, they just had a game 7 on Sunday, so this could be when you have the road team, you just want to get one of those first two, and a lot of times game one is the one that you can get. You go sneak up on them. They're fully rested. I would expect the Lakers to get a win tonight, and that's what I'm anticipating.
All right, well, Chance, let's see if you call it. Well, all right, to our listeners out there, until next time, we'll holla at you. Peace.